then we're going to begin with an interesting piece of research, I think. It isn't often that you have the opportunity to talk with someone in 2007 about their work and their research, and 7 or 8 years later come back and find out what really happened. Well, we're going to do that with this first segment. Mark Benden is a researcher in ergonomics, and he talked to us then, and we're going to show you his theory and his research, and then we'll show you the 2015 result of all that coming up next. Well, could you stand to lose? You know, this little book is fascinating, and my next guest has written it. But more than that, he's an ergonomic researcher, and he has some interesting information that I think every one of you are going to be fascinated with, just about burning calories alone by standing up. I'm amazed. Let me introduce you to my next guest. He is Dr. Mark Benden, and he's Executive Vice President of Neutral Posture, but he does lots of other things besides write books about how to do ergonomically correct things. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate you having me here.
You've been a researcher for 20 years. When did you decide that instead of designing bigger furniture, you'd look at a new way of doing furniture?
That's a good question. I really kind of happened into that aspect of it through some research on my PhD. We were trying to prove that the furniture industry needed to create new standards, and the reason we knew that was the case was that we were watching the American population go through a rapid change over the last 30 years with respect to mostly weight, but also a little bit just general size, but primarily weight. And as a result, the furniture that we provided needed to be tested to different standards. And the more we got into it and the more we found information and just how much bigger people have gotten, it just became obvious to all of us doing the research that we needed to find a way to try to help reverse this trend. And right now, 2/3 of Americans are overweight or obese. And so when you have that many people in our population that have these types of needs, it's just inherent on all of us to try to find better ways to reverse that trend.
Wider bodies are staggering in airplanes and
Yes.
Buses and cars, and every industry that deals with seating
Yes.
is dealing with that. You've brought some pictures, Mark, and I thought if it would be all right with you, we'd let you talk about this concept in pictures, because one's worth 1,000 words, they say.
Absolutely.
Okay, this is a sketch, of course.
Yeah, this first sketch kind of demonstrates how you can transform a normal, typical conference room where so many people come into meetings and they sit back in a recliner, a leather recliner chair, and they relax and they get comfortable and they get sleepy. And one of the first things that happens when people get sleepy is they realize they probably need to get up and stand and move away from the conference table where the meeting's actually happening. Everyone else who's had their coffee and is alert kind of looks at you like you're no longer part of the group. But it does wake you up. You do become more alert. You think better on your feet than on your seat. And it's a good option to change the conference room. This gives you an example of an office setting where this individual has the ability to sit or stand at the exact same workstation. The nice thing about that is that it becomes a station that's biased towards standing rather than sitting. And she will burn many more calories, up to 40% more calories standing at her station than she would sitting at the same exact station.
And the thing I notice is that the station is already tall, so it's easy to stand up, but the chair is there with the option to sit, but it too is tall.
That's
so
right.
it's not an up and down, adjust the chair, adjust the table kind of a thing.
It becomes very user-friendly to walk into your office, for instance, after lunch and pick up a phone call and realize after 10 minutes or so on the phone that you've been standing. And it just becomes normal to do that. It's very biased towards standing rather than biased towards sitting.
Now this is actually your office that
Yes,
we're looking at.
Yes, it is. And I have the option behind me of sitting at the computer at a taller desk, and then also a conference table where I can have meetings and have the option to stand or to sit. Some of the people who come into my office really look forward to it because they'll stand the entire time. They've been sitting at their desk in many cases. Others will mix it up. They'll stand for a while, sit for a while. But it's nice because we're all at eye level, whether we're standing or sitting.
Such a great concept. And of course, this is the book, Could You Stand to Lose? And it's all about standing and losing weight. And in the time we have left, I want you to share with our viewers how standing and calories and weight loss are connected.
Sure. Approximately 40% more calorie burn when you stand than when you sit. Now that assumes that during the process of standing you don't really do much more. What we actually found out from the research that the typical person will fidget, move about, shift their weight, put their foot up on the footrest. So they'll actually burn even more calories than that. But at 40% more calorie burn, if you could just stand a couple hours a day at your computer workstation, you could burn an extra 300 calories. Now, it takes about 3,500 calories to lose a pound of weight. So in about 10 working days to 12 working days, you could easily lose a pound. And over the course of a year, you could lose 20 pounds. So this isn't some sort of an overnight success. This isn't a crash diet. It's not a fad. It's not a pill. It really combats the problem that most Americans have in that we consume about 150 to 250 more calories per day than we burn. If we exercise a couple days a week, on those days we actually get a little bit ahead of the power curve, and we'll consume those extra calories that burn those extra calories we've taken in. Unfortunately, most of us don't exercise 7 days a week, and so we need something else during the other 8 hours of the day that we're awake to combat this ever-growing diet that we have all happened into the last few years.
I want that workstation in my office. I love it. That is just marvelous. And we have some information we're going to put up on the screen so that people can find out more about the book. Could You Stand to Lose? Emphasis on standing, but I guess losing too. At any rate, for more information, 778-0502. You may email Dr. Benden, mbenden@neutralposture.com, or more about the book, and you can also email him at this same address, www.standtolose.com. It's just that easy. Thank you for sharing your secrets with us.
You're welcome.
Appreciate
Thank
that.
you.
Let me introduce you to Dr. Mark Benden. I should say reintroduce you because he's been here before, but it's been a long time. Thanks for coming.
You're welcome. Glad to be here.
The last time he was here, we had a book, and today we have a desk.
It's changed a lot over the years.
It
There's been
has.
some progress made. Yeah.
And of course, he is the director of the Ergonomics Center in the Texas A&M Health Science Center. And so you have taken a theory and it's become a reality. Talk about that.
Sure. So when we began back in '06, we were looking at adults in offices, and we noticed this sedentary pattern developing, and we coined the term at the time, technology-induced inactivity. And the idea was that as we've progressed with computers, the screen time, of course, was even back then off the charts. Now it's really gone exponential, right? Because we're all ticky-tacking everywhere we go. We were kind of shocked by that because we noticed that during the waking hours, the 18 or so hours a day that we're all up and out of bed, we were spending more and more of that time seated. And unfortunately, through epidemiological studies, we've shown that the more time we spend sitting, which correlates with very low inactivity levels, we see health patterns emerging that are negative, bad outcomes, coronary disease, we see cancer associations, we see mortality from all causes. So unfortunately for those of us whose jobs require us to be in an office, to be sedentary for our work, and then a lot of times we sit in the car to drive home in traffic, we go home and sit in front of the TV for hours and then finally go to bed. We're just not up and active. It's even created a phenomena called the exercising couch potato. This is really unfortunate for us all because, well, there are a number of us who take the prescribed, recommended 30 minutes a day, 4 to 5 days a week, and we get out and we do some sort of cardio, get on the treadmill, take a walk, take a jog, play some tennis or whatever. And we've been referring to those folks now as the exercising couch potatoes because what we're seeing is that they're getting that prescribed amount of recommended exercise, formal exercise in, but the rest of the time they're completely sedentary, sitting typically in front of a screen. And unfortunately, that little bit of exercise isn't enough to overcome the rest of the negative effects of being sedentary all the time. So we were created to be dynamic, we were created to be upright and mobile and to move about frequently and to change positions. It's how we heal ourselves, it's how we keep ourselves alert and awake and on task. And so for those of us who are kind of forced into this sedentarism as part of maybe our occupation, or in the case of students in schools nowadays, it's something that's become to such an extreme. We need a reversion. We need to step back. This is nothing new. We used to have schools that had upright desks. Many of us used to work in upright postures or positions. In fact, when I first came in the workforce, I worked in a machine shop. And I can remember a lot of the old timers coming around to me when I would be sitting on my stool, deburring a part, and they would say, "What are you doing?" And I'd say, "Well, I'm working." And they'd say, "No, you're not. You can't work sitting down on the job. You're sitting down on the job. Get up." And to them, it was just insulting that I would think of myself as working while seated. Now, in our lifetime, this is completely flip-flop, right?
It has.
Anything we do, we associate now, especially with computers, with seated work. But that's just a mindset, that's a paradigm, that's something we've sort of slowly gotten into over time, but it doesn't have to be that way. We have other ways to work. And so standing for us becomes not the alternative. In other words, we don't want to tell people to stand all the time, right? That wouldn't be good for us either. What we want to tell people is move more. So instead of sitting all day, move more. And standing becomes a proxy for that.
We have about 2 minutes, and I want people to be sure that they see that what we are looking at here, this is your research recommends high school students, middle school students, elementary students, and you don't see chairs with these, but we'll answer that question. Sure. We have a stool right here that, so you can see what the concept would be. But you've been doing research with this kind of product in a real place in this town.
Correct. So we've been in several area schools in Bryan and College Station, also in Navasota, working with the teachers and the students, the administration, trying to find ways to get the kids more engaged in the classwork, get them up and more alert, which is what we all do in a long, boring meeting. We stand up to wake ourselves up. And we've been providing these products to give them a place to act as a proxy for movement. If they get fatigued, they're able to rest on the stool, but they're also able to get up and move about as well. So.
You know, this is just fabulous, and I know we have just scratched the surface. Here's the way you contact or connect with this kind of research and this way that they're doing things today. Texas A&M Health Science Center School of Public Health. For more information, sph.tamhsc.edu. And of course, here's the telephone number, 979-436-9405. We'll connect you and you can get answers to your questions. And it's so exciting that we've talked about it in book form and we're seeing the end of the research, and just congratulations on what you've been able to do.
Appreciate it.
Such a pleasure.